Thank you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 6:06 p.m. If everyone would please take note of the emergency exits, an emergency. And confirm the pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mrs. Gillard?
Here.
Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mrs. Snyder?
Excused for the moment.
Mrs. Gendron?
Here.
Ms. Paradis?
Here.
Mr. DeRose?
Here.
Mrs. Carey?
Here. Thank you. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent O'Shea for the district report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. Maybe what we'll do is start with talking about testing, and then that way we'll have a few more minutes before
Thank
the
you.
budget presentation. So Mr. Martinelli has a brief update on testing.
Today was our first day of computer-based testing ever in this district. The elementary schools tested grade 5 in ELA. The middle school did 7 and 8 computer-based testing and paper testing in 6th grade today. It went very smooth, and we're all pretty worried, but it seemed to work very well. And that's because the principals and the teachers were well prepared, and they had the kids on the computers learning the system and how to answer the questions and do their very best. So it went today smooth.
And we had very few opt-outs.
I think we had 3 or 4 opt-outs here at the middle school, and I do not believe that we had any at the elementary school, so that's good.
Ty Turner there, so for sure. Great job.
Great news.
Thank you. So I'm going to
Okay.
start with the
Onward.
budget presentation. So as you know, we've had a series of needs assessment and then budget committee meetings. Thank you, Mrs. Carey, Mr. Jackson, for spending a lot of time with us, pleasurable as always. And then you listened to the principals and the directors as they did their presentations. So tonight, we pull it all together and talk about the proposals. And first, Stacy is going to go through both the revenues and expenditures and some other items.
So the proposed budget is $53,439,681. It's a $1.099 increase, and it's a 2.1% increase over the current year budget. The majority of the expenses, as we'll go through the next several slides, are focused on instructional programs, staffing specifically. And then there are increases in utilities, electrical and gas. There was increases, we have increases in phone and trash. Building repairs, there's several projects that we need to take care of outside of the capital project that need to be addressed. So that's contributing to the increase. We do have increased security, so we have the campus safety monitor positions that we're introducing at the elementary levels. We have increases in special programs. We have a couple of residential placements that are expensive. Tuition and related services for out-of-district placements, ELL support, and then benefits. The trend overall is high. We fared well. Our time is up. So about 10% increase in health, and then a 5% increase in pharmacy. So that's basically the snapshot of what's contributing to the overall increase. Next slide, please. So revenues. This slide hasn't changed since the executive proposal. I'm sure everyone is aware, you watch the news, that the state budget is late. It was due April 1st. We did have Assembly Member John McDonald join us, I think February, and we thought it was going to be late, and that rang true. There has been several extensions. They do plan to meet tomorrow. They plan as far as I can tell, to extend that again into next week. There's several roadblocks. Affordable housing continues to be an issue for the state. But as it relates to education, foundation aid is the big talking point. Specifically, in the proposal, the governor lifted the hold harmless, which was a tough impact for several districts, at least half of the districts in New York State. It would be a negative impact for them, and they would likely have budget cuts. There was also a change into the theory for the inflation rate. So what the new proposal, as far as I understand, is there will be a study. So this is the first year that Cohoes is fully funded, and they're looking to change the formula. So we'll see about that. Hopefully there will be experts that'll be brought in, and it will be a well thought out process. So I don't know what that will mean for us. There's no way for me to know what that will mean for us, but unfortunately that's the reality of what's going on. So we're holding tight with the executive figures. I do think this is a worst case for us. So I don't expect that it would be worse once the budget is passed at the state level. So that's favorable. I don't know what to say about future years. So there will be much to talk about in the next year as it comes to foundation aid. So we're holding tight. 1% on the property taxes. That was due March 1st. That was submitted. And then most everything else is pretty flat as far as revenues go. So proposed tax levy is 18,106,541. That's well underneath what our cap is. So that is a 1% increase over the current year. I do have some historical figures here. 22-23, we had a 3.86% increase, and then last year we had a 1% increase as well. I did reach out to the city assessor to talk about the tax roll and what his estimates are. I'll remind folks that his deadline and my budget deadlines don't match up at all. So his roll is finalized in July, and I'm looking at estimating it now in April. So I, communicate with him. We get a feel for where he thinks it's going to end up, but these are rough estimates. So we try to be conservative when we talk about this, and we provide estimates so that nobody is unpleasantly surprised by the outcome. That's the goal. So we spoke via email today. He did expect a pretty flat, modest change, if anything, to the assessment roll. So that's what I will use for the estimates as we continue these discussions and we talk through the budget hearing and we work on the newsletter. I did run the numbers. It looks like for the year, it'd be about $30, so it's less than $3 a month. So that's based on an assessed value of 150,000. So that's the comparable. So it's pretty relative to what we had last year as far as an increase. Any questions on that? Proposed expenses. So the first 3 line items I would say on this are the talking points. So instructions and programming. It's a 5% increase. It does represent over half of our budget. That's why we're in the business. It's a $1.4 million increase, and we'll go through the slides. It's basically, it's the needs based off of our needs assessment that were identified through that process, and a lot of it is going to be staffing needs. Again, the employee benefits, it's how the market is trending. Health 10%, 5% for RX. Operations, there's several items in there. The first is utilities, as I already talked about. We have some building repair projects that we have going on, including some paving over at Lansing. And then also the security enhancements that we have. Debt service, you'll see, is a decrease. That's based off of the borrowing schedules that we have that are existing, and also what we plan to borrow this June. So we have a new borrowing this year, and then we'll have another borrowing in June. After next year, then it'll be smoothed out. So next year is really an outlier. Capital outlay. There is no proposed capital outlay in next year's budget. We have had that for 2 consecutive years. The budgets have been very difficult to manage, and the timeline has been very challenging as well, especially since we're in a capital project, and that's a multi-year capital project. So we've kind of taken a step back from that so that we can focus on the larger capital project, and then the plan will be to get back into a routine, but we need to take a step back. Any questions on any of that?
Okay. So before I begin, just a few reminders. So the American Rescue Plan funding, this is the last year we're receiving the funding. Funds have to be expended by September 30th. The good news is we were very mindful in planning our use of ARP funds, limiting the number of staff that were funded through that. And also, as you recall, we began moving some positions into the budget last year so that we would be better prepared this year. So you will see currently ARP on the slides, but next year they will either be in the proposed budget or potential grants efficiency. So I wanted to talk about these 3 columns first as well. So to better illustrate the process, we use the 3 columns. One is the needs assessment, which you have already heard from the principals and directors. Then through the series of budget committee meetings and return on investment forms, including some data. The next column is what's in the proposed budget, so through funding of the budget. There's another column, potential grants and efficiencies. So we are going to work hard to try to be able to provide these. That's not a guarantee, it says potential. However, we have some funding sources already set aside through grants. So for example, Title IV, through others, we have the potential of a grant next year, a new grant. We're learning more about it on April 30th. From what we're hearing, that could accommodate certain areas. And then others outside of potential grants, the principals have been looking within at some potential different ways to maybe schedule some things. So that's why it's efficiencies. So that's why it says potential grants and efficiencies. Again, we know those are important. They were in the needs. Everything's important, but those are the things we think we can do through grants and efficiencies. So at the elementary level, we talked about the intervention specialist and the behavior coach. Based on numbers, Mark had 1 teacher funded through ARP. When we went through the enrollments, Harmony Hill is still in need of that additional section, so that would move to the proposed budget. That's kind of a bubble that's moving its way through. It's in 2nd and 3rd grade next year, and then would continue forward. AIS support, will be in the potential grants and efficiency column. The speech teacher, you heard our director of special programs and assistant directors talk about the functional skills class and the needs. So along with that are the physical therapist, the occupational therapist, and the aide. So we would love to have district-wide elementary band and to be able to bring that back. Our concern, because as we look through this all, we had to also think of sustainability and not, and as Stacy said, we're not certain of years ahead. So that's something that is not in the proposed budget for this coming year, although an elementary musical club is to provide the elementary students. It's really a drama club, but a drama musical to provide them with that opportunity right at the elementary level. The year-long chorus, Abram Lansing and Harmony Hill. We know that when chorus is being held at music is being held at Abram Lansing, the schedule would allow the teacher to go to Harmony Hill and do chorus year-long. The other way around, because of class schedules, we need to look elsewhere and see where we can make that happen. But we feel that is something that we can do year-round chorus. Also campus safety monitor, Abram Lansing and Harmony Hill. The principals discussed the needs. There's not one at Van Skyke, but currently Van Skyke can call the existing safety monitors. This will allow for more access to Van Skyke when needed as well. And then the ELL support is also in the proposed budget. You've heard of our increase in ELL needs. Any questions on the elementary slides? Okay. So at the middle school and high school, we've really seen the importance of the role of deans of students and are able to move those into the proposed budget. And then also currently through ARP, middle school has a social emotional learning coach. The recommendation is to keep and move that into the budget, but have it be a full-time social worker similar to the high school model, not an SEL coach. So providing the additional assistance directly to students and doing solution focus groups with students as well. So the sixth grade teacher, anything in purple is not in either of the other two columns. Maybe you figured that out. We had red first, but you're not supposed to write in red, so we changed it to purple. So this year, sixth grade was as high as approximately 162 students in the actual classes, not self-contained. Currently, they're at 154. The projected fifth grade going into sixth grade is at 122. So it is not felt that an additional section is needed next year. If you take the 122 and divide it by the 6 teachers, it's 20 students per class. If we maintain the 7, that would be 17. We felt that we could utilize that elsewhere, knowing that we're always looking, just like we did this year, if numbers change and increase. The teacher, also in the proposed budget, the Spanish teacher, PE teacher, summer guidance support, 0.2 PE teacher. A few other things to just point out, there was a request for special education teacher from the middle school. Currently, that's a 0.4. That would have been an increase of 0.6. The numbers of students going into special ed next year at the middle school are the same or very similar to the number of students this year. So we felt that the additional 0.6, although it's always helpful that because of the numbers were the same, we would be able to program without that addition. Any questions? The potential grant efficiencies. We know currently there's a 0.4 social studies teacher. As they begin to schedule, the numbers in 7th grade will be higher based on this. That might turn out to be a 0.2 social, a 0.2 science. It depends on how the schedule works out. So we wanted to put that in that other column and we'll be able to look through the schedule and then determine what we need to commit to.
So the teacher assistant request in the needs assessment and the teacher aid for in-school support are being combined into potential efficiencies? Because it says,
Well, so the teacher aid was never filled for in-school support. In the original model they had requested, but it was never filled, so never become really part of the program, and the program was able to cover the periods that the teacher assistant was not there without hiring a new aide, which is why that is not moving over. The teacher assistant for in-school support, again, through the types of grants, both with, supporting students who are struggling, that is something that we will be exploring. We would like to go a little bit more in depth and work with Rachel in the middle school on the model and figure out what the best model is.
so I guess, I'm sorry if I wasn't clear, but the request for the teacher assistant in the needs assessment currently under the ARP funds, what is that person?
Oh, that's in school support.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Long answer for a short question. I'm sorry, I know we were talking about in school.
I appreciate the explanation.
And then at the high school. So Dean of Students, tutoring center instructor, the tutoring center, we started that middle of the year. That has worked very well, and the teacher is doing, the instructor, an amazing job with the students. So the high school is currently at a 0.7 special education teacher, and looking at some of the needs of the students, the recommendation is in that case a 1.0. That's only a 0.3 increase. Health teacher 0.2, and summer guidance support. So in terms of the potential grants and efficiencies, the teacher assistant is something where we feel could be a potential grant. That would be somebody who would oversee some of the credit recovery through Apex. You heard Laura talk about that a little bit, although it looks like we're exploring Edgenuity right now. Is that right? Edgenuity for that area. So if that happened, Laura would be able to free up sections of staff who are currently doing that, 0.2 ELA, 0.2 social studies, et cetera, and relook at the scheduling and thus not need to hire the additional sections. And we're also looking at that in terms of the AIS position as well, with some other things at the high school that we are working through right now. So any questions on either middle or high? And then athletic department, weight room coverage, uniform and supplies, and then the huddle software upgrade. That will mean that down the road, after the subscription is up, the video will be able to be shared at no cost. I believe that's what that means to parents versus the what's currently happening. So at the next slide, IT, and PJ and I spoke. We never give the purple news. We never let people just learn it here. So PJ and I spoke earlier. The computer support technician is not included in the proposed budget. We know that there is a lot in terms of technology, but we're confident that we can, work through that, and we will revisit that in future years. And then the equipment that was mentioned. And then finally, facilities, the maintenance mechanic that is in the proposed budget. This really helps us to be proactive and to prevent things from happening, and in the long run can, save us money, and making sure we're on regular schedules with a full contingent of maintenance. And then district-wide projects and repairs in health and safety. I'm not sure, Dan, Stacy, if you want to add anything of the facilities or IT, or did I do it almost the way you would have done it, but not quite as good? Okay. So next up, Stacy. I forgot something. I should have looked at my notes.
Would you like to share it now?
Yes, I need to share. I'm so sorry. It says after high school, and I didn't say that, so. I do have to also mention that we had, and I had shared this previously, a parent request that their child attend Tech Valley. We talked about this in the budget committee, what that would mean. We would, first of all, not just be able to honor one request, we would need to open it up, see who else was interested, perhaps do a lottery, commit to at least one student per year. The cost of that is $16,900 per student. So over 4 years, that's $67,600. We felt, respect the parents, request. We just felt through the budget committee process that would be meaning that something else could not be moved forward in the budget. So the recommendation from the committee was to not move forward with Tech Valley. I'm not sure if you have any questions on that.
And can a parent pay for their student to go to Tech Valley, or do they have to go through a district? Like if a parent chose to do that?
I don't know. I can ask that question.
Just wondering if we get asked it.
Does any,
Thank you.
And are we meeting the students' needs today?
so first of all, we think it has to go through the district. I'm not certain, and I just can't speak to a particular student.
Okay.
But there are multiple opportunities in district
Okay.
that I'm sure we've discussed, well, we've offered meetings, right, with administrators or department leaders to many people, right, when they have questions about
When they-
programming.
Like FRP, barely college, high school, we send 25 kids a
Yeah,
year.
I think that's important to know. We do have a lot of offerings
Mhm.
between CT and FRP, and also, in terms of all of our buildings, meeting with parents and working to accommodate.
Is a big part of the discussion, make sure that other opportunities, right, existed.
Next steps.
Next steps, pass out, I'll keep some for the audience.
Budget next steps.
Yes, I'll pass out the property tax report card. This is a draft. So the next time we meet on April 24th, the board will act on the total spending plan. So it'll be a line item to approve the total budget, total dollar amount, and then also the property tax report. So the highlights for the property tax report card, and this information will all go on our website as well. The information to highlight is the overall budget proposal, which is the 2.1% increase. So that's that first line item. Line item E, which is the property tax levy increase, which is the 1% that we discussed tonight. And then on the second page, the top, that's the fund balance. I wanted to talk about that with you tonight. So you'll recall in the fall, after our audit each year, we talked about our reserves and our reserve plan and our long-range financial plan. And we talked about our funding priorities, and we don't actually fund these until late May, month of June, until we have the absolute best numbers that we possibly can have. But this document asks us to project things to June 30. So we said in the reserve plan that our priorities would be, the first would be either the capital reserve fund if we had an unfavorable bidding environment, which we did not, thankfully, or debt service. Based off of the bidding environment, it was a favorable environment. Looks like we will have a phase 3, hopefully, if everything goes as planned. So the recommendation is going to be to fund debt service reserve as we're borrowing almost $18 million for the capital project. So that's going to be our first priority. So that's going to be the first recommendation. The second recommendation will be for the tax tertiary reserve, because we do have 3 active cases, which we know about. And then the third recommendation is going to be for TRS, which we're trying to take advantage to fund that to the full 10%, which is allowable. Allowed 2% every year of prior year's payroll. So those will be the 3 recommendations. I did estimate what those numbers are going to be, so that's reflected in this. That would bring our fund balance down to 4.9%, which we did talk about during our long-range plan, and trying to get that fund balance down to the allowable 4%. So I will update in June, I'll update the long-range plan, the long-range financial plan for that information once we do the recommendations and you guys act on that. So this is kind of a snapshot of what it'll look like, and then we'll actually physically do it later on May, June timeframe. You have any questions or?
So I just wanted to, when we had a discussion regarding the capital project initially, it was, basically smoothing out our debt service so that we're not in a position of having to go to the taxpayers to ask for funds to make this happen.
Right.
And so this is part of that plan to fund the debt service reserve so that we can continue on with the work that we already have planned, with no increase to the taxpayer, at least for capital project initiative.
Existing, yes. Yep. It'll smooth out the 18 million.
And I like to see that we're moving.
We're moving in the right direction.
Can you just talk a little bit about what impact, if any, would occur if we have an increase in foundation aid over the numbers that we're projecting? Please.
So if we have a material increase, then I would recommend that we would meet in between now and the 24th to discuss that. If it's not a material increase, then we wouldn't have a need to meet. We have to be very careful and thoughtful as we're adding legacy costs, meaning people. So salaries, benefits. The asks were about 1.5 million through the needs assessment process, and that's not factoring in utility, contractual, health insurance, any of those items that are, as everybody knows, everybody has a household here. Expenses are growing at a rate higher than we're able to sustain, right? So if it's a material increase, then we would need to meet and discuss that. The budget committee would need to meet as well and revisit the plan. If it's not material, then we will just go straight with what is presented this evening.
And could you describe to us what your material versus, what is that, right?
Yeah, I know.
Listen, I know I think you say these words in our special, very fun meetings, but I think it's important if we're having this conversation that we identify your thoughts on what material.
I would say anything.
And listen, I don't think anybody's interested in holding you to an exact number.
Yeah.
I'm gonna write a number down.
I think it's good for us to have an understanding of what a material change would look like.
Want to know who wins?
So, do some bets. I'll write it down for you.
Thank you.
I'm gonna,
Percentage wise,
Number nine.
do math.
I'm not putting you on the spot, I don't want to put you on the spot to like give you to,
I would say $500,000, to be fair.
Okay.
If it's over $500,000.
Price is Right rules. You said 300
Pretty close. I said 3%.
and I said 250K.
Wow, you're all over the news.
not all to it. I'm asking for, I'm not gonna guess. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Sorry to put you on the spot like that. But what you said earlier about the conversation, so we've been advised through our contacts, right, Assemblymember McDonald and our other contacts, that the funding is kind of set for education, but the big piece right now is the discussion that they're going to mandate about the foundation aid formula and the whole terms discussion now, all of that. So basically, I think what it translates to is we are no longer assured that we're going to get as much as or more than we've gotten in years past. So with that off the table, it's really, really important to be mindful of kind of legacy.
Right. I just want to clarify, $500,000 on foundation aid, not including expense-driven aids, just to be crystal clear.
Thank you for that. Anybody else have any question?
So I have a question for you. Does the 3 columns work in terms of explaining? Okay, just wanted to make sure, because you're going to see it again 2 weeks from now, so I just wanted to make sure that works.
You mean for what was asked for, what is going to be in the budget, and then what you're going to,
So I think it would be helpful if this is a public thing for us to have. You have potential grants and efficiencies, but does that mean, certain things are efficiencies based on scheduling, or is it based on new grant opportunities or existing grants that we currently have? I think that it would help the public and perception for us to know what those potential pieces are, understanding that it's potential and nobody holds to the fact that we're saying Title IV is where we're going to get this money. It's potentially able to be taken out of Title IV, but I think as a public-facing document for us to look at this, I think it's helpful to know how we're going to come by efficiencies or if there are new grant opportunities or existing grants, which we feel, can be put into a different budget line.
I can do that. I can also make sure the grants are together. Efficient.
Thank you.
I mean, if you guys are okay with that, I just.
yeah, no.
That's why I wanted to make sure.
So feedback is helpful for us.
I'm just thinking of someone looking at it who hasn't been sitting at this table for the last several weeks.
Right.
Seeing these presentations, what does that mean? And, it's not that we have all this money now that we're not actually using or we're not using well. It's because, when we say efficiencies, sometimes, people get something in their head that says, oh, well, you already have this money and now you're going to find it for next year to bring this, that, or the other to the table. I think it's important for us to understand that, the ways that we're doing it and how we're exploring it are.
Continuing on, and next steps, the public hearing is May 8th, and then the actual budget vote is May 21st. We do have an audit committee meeting on Tuesday of next week, starts at 5:30. I did hear from Michael Wolf today. He's working on the report. As soon as I have it, I will share it out. We did talk about, I'm going out of turn a little bit here, business office update. We did talk about reserve recommendations, and the long-range financial plan will be updated, and you guys will see that It's probably June. I don't want to promise May with the vote. And then we talked about the property tax report card. I did, what you have now is the March 1st balances, so I should have updated with interest for April 1st. So that's the only change that you'll see in that document, but I'll update it. The bank recs weren't finished yet as of today. So, but for the most part, that'll be the only change on that document for the next time you see it.
And then just finally, I want to talk about some upcoming events. So April 12th at 3 p.m., our alumni field groundbreaking ceremony on Monday is when the equipment is scheduled to start to be delivered, and we're not quite sure what time the ground is actually going to be officially broken by machinery. That's why we were selecting Friday. We will have it rain or shine unless it rains so much that a girls lacrosse game gets canceled, which I hope won't happen. I think it's going to be not like today, but so we're planning on using a pop-up tent if necessary. There's a ceremonial pile of dirt, and we'll try to make sure that doesn't turn into a ceremonial pile of mud. So we're looking forward to it. We'll have, oh, I didn't know Jeff was gonna kick a field goal. You better go talk to Jeff. We're gonna have our tiger, and we're looking forward to it, so thank you. I know some of you are able to attend. By attending, you'll get a hard hat with a tiger. And then also our juniors and seniors are going to the career jam at the Albany Job Fair, and then we have a policy committee meeting on April 22nd.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stacy, thank you so much. Every year you build that budget from scratch, and it's so much work. But we are greatly appreciative of your work. It was a difficult few years, and we are really trending, as Margaret said, in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any Board of Education discussion of the items on the agenda, please?
I do. So we have four contracts that we are going into with outside service providers that we put bids out for, correct? How did the winning bids get chosen for the four?
How did the what?
The winning bids, how did you choose? How did you select?
It was based off of 3 different components. School experience, cost was a factor, and the company, basically the size of the company, availability of the staff, how long it's been in business. Those are the 3 criteria.
And were any interviews held with any of the companies?
No.
Did you check any of the references for the other schools?
CSR has conversations with the selected vendors to make sure that nothing has been missed as far as it's a complete proposal and the cost, there's no cost outliers.
That's not what I'm asking, I'm sorry. Did you contact any of the references that were listed on the bid packages for the companies to find out that there are not, like, did you call like one of the other schools to say, hey, this person did this project with you? Do you have any good or bad or anything like that to do?
No, we do ask for references as part of the response. We've done business with the majority of these companies. And we asked Turner and CSR if they have done business with these companies as well.
Okay.
So that is the process, basically.
And who wrote up and published the bids proposals that you sent out to the companies? the request for proposal?
CSR wrote the specs, and then internally, we added all of the legal, but the specs were written up by CSR.
Okay. And this can all be found so that the public, anybody in the public that wants to make sure that, any of the people that had other bids put in and stuff like that.
Yeah,
All of-
so we open them publicly.
Mhm.
So that's step one, and then everything is available with the district clerk, and it can be examined. And anybody who wants it can have it. There is an analysis that is completed. I had CSR initially do the analysis, and I did my own, and then we compared results.
Okay, so you were guided more by CSR into the choosing of the people, would you say?
No, if hours for the air monitoring, there was hours differentials basically because some companies didn't have a background here. So basically, if you know the asbestos situation here, you're going to have less testing. So they were able to assist with making it more of an apples to apples for that particular RFP, but that wasn't really needed for any of the others. Just for the air monitoring, it was a little gray from the hours perspective. So they were able to help with that. But the other three, it was an apples to apples. I didn't need any assistance.
So you would say it was cost?
There's three factors. It's not just cost.
So school experience, cost, and the company size and location.
Location, availability, the size and experience of their staff.
Okay. Yep.
Can I just ask if that information is available, does it have to go through a FOIL request, or it's just available for anybody to read?
It's available for review. During the RFP process, it's available, it's open to the public. It technically should be a FOIL request now.
I just want to make sure if we're saying that it's open and available, that people know the process to get open and available.
So during the bid or RFP, these are all RFPs, a little bit different. During the process, it's publicized. The deadline is at a certain date and time. It's open to the public. So anybody can come in. As we open the documents, they can be inspected by whomever would like to inspect them. For these types, we didn't have, I don't know that anybody stayed for these, but certain bids, vendors stay, and then they make copies of documentation. So it's completely open to the public at that time. After the fact, then technically it should be a FOIL request.
And we are after the fact.
Yeah, we are at the point.
So anybody that wants that information would need to request it via FOIL.
Yeah.
To Mary.
Okay.
Any other board questions on agenda items tonight? Community questions on agenda items? Old business.
Yes, please. I just had a couple things to mention. Things that we have discussed before, but sometimes you go home and think about, different things rolling around your brain. But, I've seen here tonight some of those potential efficiencies, and, I do appreciate creative scheduling, and I do appreciate being able to meet some of our needs, based on us just doing a better job or putting the right people in the right places. And so one of the things that I feel like I kind of left and now want to maybe have a conversation about, or even think about a consideration, is the high school clubs. We got a review on participation numbers in some of the clubs, and I've been sitting here for a long time, but also before that at the high school and knowing that participation in some of these clubs have been low historically. And I'm just wondering if maybe it's not time for us to do a similar return on investment process with the clubs, because maybe we're not relevant anymore, and maybe we need to think about what we're offering versus what kids are interested in. And I don't know, that this is, certainly not a mandate to say, it's just an idea to think about. How can we increase our club participation? We're talking about not being able to get IT support, in this budget, but we've also had conversations at this table about potentially having a student support help desk. And maybe that's a potential for a club that could be within the school day at period 1, or, creative scheduling into a study hall where these kids could be trained on repairing Chromebooks, because these are kind of low tech type of things that our kids could do. And we've seen how great our esports team is doing. And so we know that our kids are very technologically savvy, and maybe we can just take a broader look at what we're offering and where kids' interests are.
I think that we would be able to canvass the students to see what their interests are. We're finishing up the student survey in a couple of weeks, so after that, and your point's well taken. I do know that PJ and Jensen Giacomo had reached out to some other schools that have the student help desks and got some information on that. So things like that could definitely be looked into, and to see, what else students are interested in. They have brought forward some proposals to us in the past, but that's certain students working with certain adults, to put that out there more broadly to first see what they might want to do. And we can start talking with the secondary administrators in some future meetings.
I mean, even so far as, expanding that to the middle school, if we have a thoughtful plan on how we can do something like that. Obviously, it might be a little bit easier for high school kids to contribute towards and get ideas, but then expand to the middle school. We've had, for example, we had 2 robotics clubs, which were within our realm of funding, but it didn't necessarily happen because we didn't have the interest or someone to support that club. So, I think it's a good start for us at the high school just to think about, where we are, and if we need to reconsider or rework some of what we already have existing, and, get the best bang for our buck, but also provide opportunities for kids where interests lie right now.
Thank you. Point well taken.
And the only other thing I just wanted to ask, we have talked about our budget season and what our timelines are. We had talked about board petitions. We have 2 positions. Have we had anybody pick up petitions?
We've had one person,
Okay. Very good. And those petitions are due May 1st?
May 1st, 5 o'clock,
Okay,
My
100 signatures.
100 signatures.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't tell you ahead of time I was going to ask that. It just came into my brain.
Anybody else? No? Okay. Thank you. So, bear with me. We would like to get a motion to remove several items from the consent agenda. Those items are 6D through G. So first I would ask for a motion to vote on removing those items from the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Thank you.
Mr. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder, Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paradis,
Yes.
Mr. Gerose,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes. And now I would like to make a motion to designate the following items, or like to ask for a motion to designate the following items as consent agenda: 6A through C and 6H, 7A through D, and 10A.
So is this is a motion to just designate those as consent or a motion to approve those as consent?
To approve that, because you removed
My apologies, I misspoke.
this one. You've already removed D through G, right?
So this,
So to approve items 6A,
With them that have been removed.
yeah, and then we'll vote separately on the items that we just removed.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Okay.
thank you for clarifying.
I'll motion.
Thank you,
I'll second it.
thank you.
Okay, Mrs. Giller,
yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Ms. Snyder,
Yes.
Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paredes,
Yes.
Mr. Giroux,
Yes.
and Mrs. Carey.
Yes.
Thank you.
And let's vote now on items 6D through G for approval.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder,
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Ms. Paredes,
I abstain.
and Mr. Giroux,
Yes.
Mrs. Carey.
Yes.
Okay, yep. But we didn't do the rest of the consent, right?
That was the first one.
Oh, okay, sorry. Nope. Too many arrows, I'm sorry.
Thanks for hanging with me on the fly on that one. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank Stewart's Holiday Match Program for these really generous donations and the people of the community who gave to that program so that Stewart's could give it back. So there's some significant contributions to Abram Lansing, Harmony Hill, Van Dyke Middle School and High School. So everybody got a little piece of the pie. Great. Any comments from Board of Education members on anything that is not on the agenda? Mrs. Gillis?
So just, you know, I know that we've had conversations about field conditions and making sure we have this groundbreaking coming up, making sure that as we're moving on into this construction project, that materials and or supplies that we have staged in areas for use are limited and or out of sight for the very few and limited games that we have at home right now, to make sure that our audience and our fans can see, you know, clearly onto the fields and be able to participate in, again, because we are front loading all of these things this season to make sure that our kids and our families are getting the same, if not, you know, limited experience that they would normally get within this season. I think that we just need to make sure that we can maybe do a run through and make sure everything's kind of tucked away, at least for a short period of time until we begin the process of the construction for the project.
Well, I think actually not even the construction process, like the things that my good friend Joe Netto used to talk about, the truck and the flatbeds and the trailer sitting over by the baseball field. That field's not being worked on, but yet that stuff is still there.
So in talking with Jim, so the trucks that were there are the trucks that we are selling. They've been moved to the parking lot right now so that they won't be in the way. There is still some salt and sand with the turf. I did a drive-through myself with some cones and that will be removed. Remember, we had the snow last week, so Jim was just waiting just a bit longer, but we will remove that. He'll remove that in the near future. There's a pile of sand, though, that is, Stacy, on the platform where eventually the plan is to build around it. I think that is that needed? That sand is what's needed. So I don't know if you know, so there's the one big pile. So we're not talking about the rock salt and all that can be moved. That Jim utilizes that, but I can find
And
some
this
more
is a pile of
information.
sand that is near the baseball field.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but there's a pile of sand.
There's a pile of dirt that's closer behind the benches
And then
that's used for the field, and there's a pile of sand and salt
salt.
that's tarped over with cones
And that's,
Adjacent to the,
Yeah.
like, right where the fans would be
right.
sitting.
And that was for the winter, that, they did utilize it, what was it, last Wednesday, April, in April. So sometimes there's still storms in April. It's starting to look like, we'll be okay, but that's why that is still there, and he will move it in the near future.
And what about the trailer? The trailer is still there.
There's two trailers there.
I think it's only one.
We talked about the
Like,
trailer,
held one?
is that a potential sale, but it's not sold yet. So the plan is to move it when it's sold. That could be problematic as we go into construction. That could be problematic moving too much into our parking lots, because we also have to have places for all of our contractors to park, but we can talk with Jim about the trailer, but that might be something we can't move right away.
I mean, it could even just be moved over to the side by the garbage can or something like that. It doesn't, I mean, it is also a safety risk because it is a baseball field. There are no fences on the area, so if a child is running after a ball, he could very easily trip,
So we'll.
hit his head, anything.
We'll talk with Jim. He'll have to take into consideration, food deliveries, et cetera, to see where it could potentially be placed. But he's where and we'll continue our discussions.
Thank you.
And I agree.
The areas that I saw.
It's a very, I mean, and I don't have a child who is playing, but I was at the game the other night with the opposing team parents who were commenting on the looks of the field and everything. So definitely.
I parked back there for Honor Society and I saw it. So.
Can I ask, even if we don't have a current solution for district property with our relationship with the city, would it be potentially, we have a very short spring season and very short spring season. For us to even request if they would have an area that we could store it just for a short period of time where we could transport it. I mean, I think there's several places that I can think off the top of my head where they may allow us to just store it briefly so that our kids and our families can get the most out of this season as we are already cutting it short. I'll make a call.
So I'll have what's today, Wednesday? I'll have an update to you in the weekly news and.
Perfect. Thank you.
So the other question was just, I know that we have had some very strange weather, but I also have had, another request about the potholes at the high school. And so I am doing my due diligence and bringing it up at the meeting.
Those are planned for Tuesday. This is a wet week, unfortunately.
It is,
They're
yes.
planned for Tuesday.
Thank you.
That might be the most well-received news of this whole meeting. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments, questions? Any questions from the audience, comments, non-agenda items? No? Just want to remind everyone, we had a second reading and we adopted policy 9260 and 9320 on tonight's agenda. And the dates for future meetings are April 16th. As Stacy said, the audit committee is meeting at Page Avenue, April 24th, and May 8th are board meetings here in the library at 6 p.m. There is no executive session tonight, so if someone would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Mrs. Giller,
Yes.
Mr. Jackson,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes.
Mrs. Gendron,
Yes.
Mrs. Meredith,
Yes.
Cohoes,
Yes.
Carrie.
Yes. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
Thank you.